Hello everyone in YouTube world. This is my 3-month update on my Bell's Palsy Ramsay Hunt recovery. Haven't seen much recovery as yet, so that's maybe a bit of a misnomer. But today I wanted to talk about some things that might benefit long-term Bell's palsy sufferers. But especially victims of stroke who are looking at rehabilitation. And just have a quick look at my notes here. I've been listening to a podcast on neuroplasticity. It's Dr Ginger Campbell's Brain Science Podcast, episode 26, and that is an interview with Dr Norman Deutsch. I'll put a link to it in my video notes. But he has written a book that's called The Brain That Changes Itself, Stories of Personal Triumph from the Frontiers of Brain Science. And he talks in there about rehabilitation after a stroke, particularly the reacquisition of motor and language skills by retraining and borrowing neural real estate from parts of the brain outside those that are damaged. And I just think that for people who are suffering from the after effects of a stroke could benefit by listening to this, just in case, as in the case of my condition, it seems that consultants are not aware of, they seem to be fairly ignorant of some things to do with these sorts of condition. There's even in there talk of a technological type treatment for vertigo, which I only suffered, very luckily, very mildly with this Ramsay Hunt syndrome that I have, but which other sufferers seem to have as a big, very devastating component of their illness. So that might be worth listening to as well. Whether the technology is available generally is another question, but it is worth inquiring about. The other thing that's touched on in the podcast is the treatment of things like depression and OCD, and also mentioned more in relation to that is another book by Sharon Begley, which I'm fairly keen to read, called Train Your Mind, Change Your Brain, and I'll put a link to that in the video notes as well. Just thinking, for example, of people who have suffered some sort of traumatic event and in their lives, and create neural pathways that by repeating and thinking about these events that cause them to suffer from anxiety and depression and things like that, can be encouraged that it's possible to change bad thinking habits and to be free of those sorts of very detrimental mental conditions. As I mentioned at the beginning, my recovery is seems to be very, very slow, and I will say that my blink seems to be getting better, but it's already at 10 to 10, 2 in the morning, too late in the day to show you that when I wake up first thing in the morning, I can actually close my right eye completely, or very nearly completely, with minimal effort. It's not quite a blink, but it's getting there very, very slowly. As mentioned at the beginning, this is my 3-month video, and my mental arithmetic's dreadful, but that means day 84. This is actually day 85. Yesterday was day 84 of my illness, so that's week 12. I had really hoped that I would be getting something back around my lips and in my cheek, and well, that's the most important thing to me, really, because I mean, aside from my blink, which is also really something that I really would like to get back, but my mouth and cheek, in terms of smiling, it's very difficult not being able to smile. At least I do smile. I think I'm smiling, but it doesn't look like a smile, and that's hard. And also flute playing, which I think I'll touch upon shortly. I will show you some facial expressions later on, but there's not a lot there. Anyway, just on the whole flute playing thing, on Friday I went with my lovely Polish friend Aneta to watch a fantastic performance of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in our local town hall. It was performed by a drama group that I have done a few amateur dramatics performances with, and they did a spectacularly good job. But in the orchestra there was a girl playing the flute, and I was listening to her, and she had a really good tone, very strong, and she had lovely vibrato, and I found myself thinking, oh, I miss that, because I used to have a lovely tone and a good vibrato. A couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I started picking up my flute in the morning when I seem to have the best kind of well, I have a blink, so if there's any sort of conduction to my facial nerve conduction to my facial muscles, would be the best time theoretically to try and play the flute. And I switched back from the baroque flute that they used to play Irish music on to which I was concentrating on before I got the Bell's palsy, back to the Boehm system flute, because it's a lot easier to play and get a sound out of. And I found that I could sort of make my way through a fiddle tune maybe once before I could no longer play the second register. Breathing's very inefficient. My embouchure is completely wrecked because there are going to be awful noises in this video, and I don't know very much about video editing, so you're going to have to bear with that. But because I can't hold air in my cheeks, I'll demonstrate this now. I can't make the central hole, well, at least not very easily, and not for very long, which is required for a very thin stream of air to go over the I forget what it's called, the mouth hole in the flute, and so it's very difficult to play. But I'm sort of debating with myself. I have Bulgarian musician friends who have been sort of saying to me, well, if you don't think it's detrimental, then sort of keep at it and see how it goes. And I haven't been playing for the last couple of weeks because I've been trying to spend my little bit of music practice time learning to play the piano, which is something that I've wanted to do for years and years and years. But I'm debating with myself as to whether to persevere with the flute, because having to stretch my mouth to try and approximate an embouchure might just make my face more lopsided. It's looking particularly lopsided today, and so I'm debating with myself whether to wait for any sort of movement in my it's actually on this side, in my mouth and cheek, or whether to persevere and try and find a different way of playing the flute. Also, whether trying to play the flute would help with the nerve regeneration at all or not at all, or possibly contribute to synkinesis. I honestly wouldn't mind some synkinesis if I got some movement back, at least, but it's very difficult to know, since the whole brain plasticity thing is more applicable to stroke victims, and probably can give them hope. In this case, the facial nerve is distinct, and it's compressed in a very particular place before it divides up into the rest of the face, and so brain plasticity doesn't help that much. But maybe by making an effort to play the flute, I can encourage the nerve to regrow. I just don't know. Any specialists in the field watching this, if you'd like to comment, that would be great. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit here. So I'm going to show you some facial expressions, and try and show you this blink, but it's already been a couple of hours since I woke up, and it disappears very, very quickly. So here you go. It requires some concentration as well, because if I allow the Bell's palsy eye turning up in your head and going white kind of reflex to kick in, then the eye just doesn't close at all. So I'm going to try a blink now, and see how it goes. I need to kind of look down and then kind of close my eye, but I can feel the reflex kicking in, and it's not going to be very successful, I suspect. Try and squeeze it shut. Probably have my head down there. So that's my little blink. I hope you could see some movement there, because I couldn't see. That's my eyebrow. There's still nothing at all happening there. Oh, 2 weeks ago, I felt 2 or 3 tiny twitches in my eyebrow round about here, and I was very, very excited. And then I felt that same evening the shingles pain that I had very badly in my mouth after the paralysis set in, and had a relapse 2 weeks after the initial paralysis, began in my tongue, tip of my tongue again, and so that was a bit scary. But I can only think that a twitch in my eyebrow must have originated in my brain, so I'm hoping that's indicative of some sort of nerve conduction. As far as my cheek is concerned, there's nothing there. I don't even remember how to move the right side of my cheek. And then that's a big kind of grin, and there's nothing at all happening on the right side of my face. So that's that. I'm not going to let it get me down, but it's sort of a bit sad that I've reached the 3-month mark with so little progress. But anyway, I'll leave it at that, and talk to you again in a month or two, and I'll put some notes up for some interesting materials that you can read and listen to in the video notes. Thanks very much. Bye.